NASCAR has issued penalties in the wake of the NASCAR Cup Series race at Richmond. They have eliminated Austin Dillon from the Cup Series playoffs and fined Joey Logano. This is over at NASCAR.com. Obviously, headline reads, NASCAR officials drop Austin Dillon from Cup Series playoffs, Logano fine. And this is what it states. NASCAR officials ruled Wednesday that Austin Dillon's win at Richmond Raceway would not count toward eligibility for the Cup Series playoffs. The decision arrives 3 days after the Richard Childress Racing driver bashed his way to victory by crashing Joey Logano and Denny Hamlin on the final lap of Sunday's Cookout 400. Dillon's penalty was the most severe of a handful of those issued after Sunday's race, which was decided by a chaotic last lap of overtime. After a full review of footage and data, NASCAR officials ruled Dillon's victory would stand, but that his automatic berth in the 16-driver postseason field would be voided for violating Section 12.3.2.1b of the NASCAR rulebook, which deals with playoff eligibility and states race finishes must be unencumbered by violations of the NASCAR rules or other actions detrimental to stock car auto racing or NASCAR as determined in the sole discretion of NASCAR. So basically a rule that states that NASCAR can do whatever it wants. And they're clearly using that rule to effect on Austin Dillon here. As for what else they punished Dillon with, it says Dillon and the number 3 team also were docked 25 points in both the drivers and owners standings, dropping Dillon from 26th to 31st in the former rankings. Officials also indicated that the rescinded playoff eligibility for Sunday's win applies to both the drivers and owners championship. Elton Sawyer, NASCAR Senior Vice President of Competition, indicated that the penalties stemmed from the total chain of events through turns 3 and 4 on the final lap. He said this, I think in all due respect to the appeal process, we looked at this and the totality of everything that happened as you enter turn 3 and as the cars got to the start-finish line. So as we looked through all of that data, we came to the conclusion that a line had been crossed. Our sport has been based going for many, many years forever on good, hard racing. Contact has been acceptable. We felt like in this case that the line was crossed. Logano was fined $50,000 for his actions after the race when he spun the tires of his number 22 Team Penske Ford in anger near the RCR number 3 team's pit box. That show of disgust, a violation of the member code of conduct for compromising the safety of others, sent celebrants from Dillon's team scattering on pit road and drew a stern rebuke from NASCAR officials at the scene. I 100% agree with that fine. Logano's actions after the race on pit road were absolutely uncalled for and were unsafe and put people that were on pit road, including members of Austin Dillon's team, as well as NASCAR officials, in harm's way and in danger. That is not something he should have done. I think it would have been more appropriate to have potentially done something on the track like we saw, I think, with Denny Hamlin at Martinsville against William Byron, if I recall. Or even what Martin Truex did, I think, to Denny Hamlin at Richmond. I think it was Denny Hamlin at Richmond in the spring race. I think that would have been something more appropriate. Or even if you want to get into fiction, what Cole Trickle did in Days of Thunder, put the wheels back on and or change the tires and have at it there at the exit of the pit road. So that is the two biggest fines there. It says here, NASCAR competition officials also suspended Brandon Benish, the number 3 team spotter, for 3 Cup Series races for his guidance of Dillon atop the grandstand roof. A review of transmissions from the number 3 team radio revealed Benish saying "wreck him" as Dillon battled alongside Hamlin with the checkered flag in sight. I think that is appropriate. That is a good ruling there as well. I guess I didn't really comment on their ruling about taking the playoff berth away from Dillon, but keeping the win. I think that's just more of a covering their bases type ruling. I still feel like it lacks courage. I think they should have just taken the win away. I think in any other sanctioning body, any lower division, if you want to call it that, would have taken the win away. We saw this with the Cars Tour most recently at Hickory, where the win was taken away from the driver of the number 15 after he made contact with Connor Hall coming out of turn 4 and spinning out Connor Hall, not allowing Connor Hall to even race for the win. So I think that still lacks courage. I think they should have taken the win away, but I do think that it is interesting that they took the playoff eligibility away, because I do think that shows that NASCAR does not want this to happen in the playoffs or in the championship race, which we saw a number of drivers make note of. So I think if you do try and do something like this in the playoffs or in that final championship race at Phoenix, NASCAR might take away the championship if you act like a wrecking ball and turn the race into a demolition derby rather than a race. So I think that is what NASCAR is trying to say here. I think they should have just taken the win away entirely, because I still think there is doubt in these drivers' minds. I think there's doubt. There's doubt in my mind on whether or not you can still do this in a championship, or will they do it for a championship? Will they take the championship away if you happen to win the race, but you wrecked your 3 other competitors? I still think there are big questions about this, and I don't think this ruling really settles this. If they had taken the win away, I think it's clear cut. This is not to be tolerated, but I don't think that they've really done this. They have just basically taken the playoff berth away, and they're basically just saying to competitors moving forward, before we get into the playoffs, that this will not get you a playoff berth if you do this. So those are kind of my thoughts on that, just to kind of backtrack there. So we also have this here. Dillon entered Sunday's race in 32nd place in the Cup Series standings, but his performance had vaulted him into the 13th position on the provisional playoff grid. Wednesday's ruling reduces the number of playoff qualifiers to 12, with 4 open spots to be determined in the 3 remaining regular season events. Dillon is still eligible for the playoffs overall, should he win in one of those 3 remaining races. Both Hamlin and Logano were critical of Dillon's last lap tactics, which turned both of their cars into the outside retaining wall. Logano had cleared Dillon on the final restart and opened a slight advantage in the 2-lap dash to the finish, but Dillon hustled his number 3 RCR Chevy deep into turn 3, clipping Logano's number 22 Ford and spinning it sideways. So they're just recapping what actually happened. And so kind of going over the reactions here from the team, the drivers, and the crew chief. This is the explanation that Elton Sawyer gave for spotter Benish's suspension. He says, if you look at the crew chief and you look at the spotter and view them as calming voices in the driver's ear, in this case, we just felt like we've all listened to the audio. We know exactly what was said. We just felt like that's not what we need spotters doing. That's not what we need from a crew chief sitting on the box. They're a calming voice to what the situation is in front of them, and they're supposed to be spotting for the race, not making comments like were made, as we all know. Obviously, that comment being wreck him from the spotter stand. As for Logano's fine, this is what Sawyer said. Some of this, we've got some work to do on our side. There was a lot of people on pit road, and there always is. We have our officials out there. The drivers need to understand that. Totally understand the emotion. I get it. I've been there a few years back, but you have to respect the fact that we do have people on pit road. Our officials will be there. Security will be there. We'll do a better job on our side to make sure that families and young children and sponsors and of that nature are not on the hot side. So I actually like that he is addressing that those people shouldn't have been on the pit road either. Obviously, I think it was like Austin Dillon's wife and his daughter were there as well, because I think they actually were able to make it to his celebration there on the front stretch. I believe she was there in the when he was giving his interview there post race. So I like that he is saying that NASCAR needs to work on basically keeping a lot of these civilians, for lack of a better term, off the pits when you just had obviously a massive piece of drama, massive contention happening on the track. Tempers are flared. Keep those people away from pit road where something could indeed happen if a driver happens to be out of control or have lost their temper. So I like that he is also putting some of the onus there on NASCAR, and that they will hopefully figure out better policies and implement that moving forward. But this is the NASCAR penalty report. $50,000 fine for Joey Logano for his actions on the pit road following the race. I think that is well deserved. I don't think that he should have done that. I think that is a good fine there. And then obviously the penalty to Austin Dillon being the big one, being docked 25 points, losing his playoff eligibility, but he still gets to keep his win. I don't think that sends a tough enough message. I do think that he should have had the win taken away as well to make it clear that you will not be able to do this in the playoffs and you will not be able to do this during the championship race. But those are my thoughts. Let me know what you guys make of this. Let me know in the comments below. Do you agree with me? Do you agree with NASCAR? What would you have done? Let me know in the comments.